The physics lab door exploded open with such force that beakers rattled on their shelves. 25-year-old Miss Willow Bennett's hand froze mid-equation on the whiteboard as Dexter Caldwell stormed in. His Letterman jacket stretched tight across his muscular frame. "You failed my girlfriend on that lab report," he snarled, jabbing a finger at the petite blonde teacher. "Fix it now, or I'll show you what happens when pretty little teachers forget their place." Willow's pulse quickened, but her breathing remained steady, a technique Master Lu had drilled into her during 10 years of Wing Chun training. The morning sun, streaming through the lab windows, cast harsh shadows across Dexter's face, revealing the ugly sneer that had terrorized Ridgemont High for years. His two shadows, Jackson Pierce and Bryce Thornton, blocked the doorway like guard dogs, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Good morning, Dexter," Willow said, her voice calm as still water. "Your girlfriend's report contains 70% plagiarized content. The grade stands." The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. 28 AP Physics students sat frozen, some already recording on their phones. In her 3 weeks at Ridgemont, Willow had heard the whispers about Dexter Caldwell, star wrestler, son of Silverdale's police chief. Untouchable. The kind of boy who believed the world owed him everything, especially women's compliance. "You don't get it." Dexter stepped closer, close enough that Willow could smell the energy drink on his breath. "My girlfriend needs that grade for her scholarship, and you're going to give it to her." Willow set down her marker with deliberate precision. "Academic integrity isn't negotiable. Mr. Caldwell, if your girlfriend wants a better grade, she can submit original work." Jackson laughed from the doorway. "Hear that, Dex? The substitute thinks she has authority." "I'm not a substitute," Willow corrected. "I'm your teacher, and you're disrupting my class." Dexter's face flushed crimson. He slammed his palm on the nearest lab table, making test tubes jump. "You know what your problem is? You're one of those feminist types who thinks she's better than everyone. Well, let me educate you about how things work here." The word feminist dripped from his mouth like poison. Several female students visibly flinched, programmed by years of similar intimidation to stay silent, but Willow noticed Kendra Washington in the third row straighten her spine, phone held steady as she recorded. "The only education happening here is physics," Willow said. "You can leave voluntarily, or I can call security. Your choice." "Security?" Bryce scoffed. "You mean Officer Daniels? He coaches Dex in wrestling. Good luck with that." Dexter's smile turned predatory. "See, that's what you don't understand. This whole school, this whole town, we run it. And little girls who don't know their place, they don't last long." The threat hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Willow's students exchanged nervous glances, the atmosphere thick with the familiar dread of watching another female teacher get steamrolled by the boys' club that had ruled Ridgemont for generations. But Willow didn't retreat. Instead, she moved with the fluid grace her Sifu had taught her, positioning herself between Dexter and her students. "Mr. Caldwell, you're now making threats in front of witnesses. I suggest you reconsider." "Or what?" Dexter laughed ugly and sharp. "You'll give me detention? File a report? My dad will have it shredded before lunch." That's when Jackson made his move. While Dexter commanded attention, Jackson slipped around the side, reaching for Willow's gradebook on her desk. His fingers never touched it. In one smooth motion born from thousands of hours of practice, Willow intercepted his wrist with a Pak-Sao block, redirected his momentum, and guided him into a controlled spin that left him stumbling back to his friends. The classroom erupted. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. She didn't even look. Dexter's face contorted with rage and embarrassment. "You just assaulted a student. You're done. You're so done." "I prevented theft of school property," Willow stated calmly. Though her heart hammered against her ribs, "Everything's on camera." She nodded toward the security camera in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. "Those cameras haven't worked in years," Bryce said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. "The ones in the hallway don't." Willow agreed, "But I had this one fixed last week. Personal expense. Call it insurance against exactly this kind of situation." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in their privileged lives, the three boys faced someone who had anticipated their moves, someone who couldn't be intimidated or outmaneuvered. "This isn't over," Dexter snarled, backing toward the door. "You just declared war on the wrong family. Ask anyone what happened to the last teacher who crossed us. After they left, Willow turned back to her class as if nothing had happened. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Kendra Washington finished, a small smile playing at her lips. Precisely, Willow said, and that applies to more than just physics. The rest of the morning passed in tense anticipation. Word of the confrontation spread through Ridgemont like wildfire. By lunch, everyone knew that the new physics teacher had stood up to Dexter Caldwell and lived to tell about it. Willow sat in the faculty lounge, ostensibly grading papers but actually documenting the morning's incident in detail. She'd learned long ago that in battles against systemic corruption, meticulous records were essential ammunition. You shouldn't have done that, a voice said. Mrs. Patricia Holloway, who taught English at Ridgemont for 20 years, sat down across from her. The Caldwells own this town, the police chief, half the school board, most of the local businesses. They've destroyed careers over smaller slights. Then maybe it's time someone stood up to them. Willow replied. Patricia shook her head sadly. You're young, idealistic, but this isn't some movie where the plucky heroine wins through determination. This is Silverdale. The boys' club has run this place since before you were born. And how many female students have suffered because everyone's too scared to challenge them? Patricia's silence was answer enough. That afternoon, Willow noticed her car in the faculty parking lot surrounded by students. Her stomach dropped. As she pushed through the crowd, the damage became clear. All 4 tires slashed. Obscene words keyed into the paint. Side mirrors smashed. Miss Bennett, Eliah Cooper, one of her quieter students, rushed over. I tried to stop them, but there were 5 guys, all wearing ski masks. But everyone knows it was Dexter's crew. Willow surveyed the damage, noting several students were filming. Good. More evidence. Did anyone call the police? I did, Kendra said, phone in hand. They said it'll be at least 2 hours before someone can come out. Something about all units being busy. Of course, Willow pulled out her own phone and began photographing everything. Then we documented ourselves. Every angle, every detail. Why bother? Another student asked. Nothing ever happens to them. Remember what they did to Miss Rodriguez last year? She reported everything, and they still forced her to resign. What did they do? Willow asked, though she suspected she already knew. Started with her car. Just like this, Elijah explained. Then fake social media accounts with photoshopped pictures, harassment calls at all hours. Dead animals in her classroom. She lasted 6 weeks before breaking. The principal did nothing? Principal Morrison? Kendra laughed bitterly. He's Dexter's godfather. The whole system's rigged. Willow felt the familiar fire building in her chest, the same feeling she'd had in Wing Chun tournaments when facing opponents who thought her small stature made her weak. They always learned otherwise. Miss Bennett, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Naomi Patel, usually silent in class, stepped forward nervously. I have something you should see. She held out her phone, showing a video from earlier that day, but it wasn't just the morning confrontation. It was footage from 2 weeks ago. Dexter cornering a freshman girl in an empty hallway, his hand on the wall beside her head, her eyes wide with fear as he pressed closer. This is Emma Rodriguez, Naomi whispered. Miss Rodriguez's daughter. After her mom left, Dexter started targeting her, said it was her fault. Her mom couldn't handle honest criticism. Are there more videos like this? Willow asked carefully. Naomi nodded. Dozens. We've been collecting them, hoping someday someone would actually do something. There's even... She paused, glancing around nervously. There's audio of him and his friends planning what they did to teachers, bragging about it. We call it the insurance files. Kendra added, but we've been too scared to use them. His dad's the police chief. His uncle's a judge. His mom runs the biggest law firm in 3 counties. Willow looked at the group of students gathering around her damaged car. She saw fear, yes, but also something else, a spark of hope. For the first time, someone was standing their ground against the Caldwell machine. I need you to send me everything, she said. Use encrypted email. Document everything from now on. And watch each other's backs. You're really going to fight them? Elijah asked. Disbelief clear in his voice. I'm going to do my job, Willow replied, which is teaching you physics and ensuring a safe learning environment. If the Caldwells have a problem with that, they're welcome to take it up with me. That evening, Willow sat in her small apartment, laptop open, organizing the file students had sent her. The pattern was clear and horrifying. Years of systematic harassment targeting female teachers and students, all covered up by a network of complicit authorities. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You should have taken the hint with your car. The disguised voice said, last chance. Apologize to Dexter. Change his girlfriend's grade, and we'll let you finish the semester quietly. And if I don't, then you'll learn what happened to the last bitch who thought she could change things here. Did you know, miss? Rodriguez had a nervous breakdown? Had to be hospitalized? Funny how stress can affect people. The line went dead. Willow stared at her phone, processing the threat. They'd driven a woman to hospitalization just for doing her job. The rage that built inside her was cold and focused, the kind her Sifu had taught her to channel into precise, devastating action. She opened a new document and began typing. Formal complaint regarding systemic harassment and corruption at Ridgemont High School. She'd send copies to the State Education Board, the ACLU, the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, and every education journalist she could find. But first, she had one more call to make. Sifu Liu, it's Willow. I might need some advice on handling multiple opponents. The old master's chuckle was warm across the connection. The physics teacher is finally putting her real education to use. Remember, in Wing Chun, we don't meet force with force. We redirect, we use their aggression against them. The opponents aren't just physical this time, it's an entire system. Then apply the same principles, document their attacks. Let them overextend, and when they're off balance, strike at the weakest point. Willow finished. After hanging up, she returned to her laptop. The Caldwell network thought they were hunting her, but they'd made a crucial mistake. They'd threatened her in writing, left evidence of their crimes, and assumed she'd react like their previous victims. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling. Willow entered Ridgemont High to find the main hallway unusually crowded. Students lined the walls, whispering and pointing. As she approached her classroom, she saw why. Her door had been removed from its hinges. Inside, chaos. Desks overturned. Equations erased from boards and replaced with crude messages about what happens to uppity feminist bitches. Lab equipment smashed, and in the center of it all, a mannequin dressed to look like her, hanging from the ceiling. But what made her blood truly run cold was the photo taped to the mannequin's face, and not of her, but of Miss Rodriguez's daughter Emma, with a message scrawled beneath, "She's next unless you learn your place." Holy shit. Kendra breathed beside her. Other students pulled out phones, documenting everything. Nobody enters. Willow commanded, her teacher voice cutting through the shocked murmurs. This is a crime scene. Crime scene? Principal Morrison appeared, his face carefully neutral. Seems like a prank that got out of hand. Boys will be boys. After all, Willow turned to face him, and something in her expression made him step back. A prank? There's a death threat against a student. I'm calling the real police, not Chief Caldwell. Now, let's not overreact. Overreact? Willow's voice carried down the hallway. Your students are threatening to assault a 15-year-old girl because I won't change a plagiarized grade. If that's not worth reacting to, what is? Morrison's face flushed. You don't understand how things work here. The Caldwells are pillars of this community. I'm sure if you just apologized, the only person who will be apologizing is whoever did this. After they're arrested. Arrested? Dexter's voice rang out as he pushed through the crowd, flanked by his usual entourage. For redecorating? Bit dramatic. Don't you think? He was smirking, but Willow caught the slight tension in his shoulders. The way his eyes flicked toward the phones recording everything. He'd expected her to be terrified, broken. Instead, she stood calm and centered, like a cobra waiting to strike. Mr. Caldwell, she said clearly, ensuring every recording caught her words. Are you confessing to vandalism and making terroristic threats? I didn't do anything, he said quickly. Too quickly. I've been in wrestling practice all morning. Coach can verify. Interesting, because I haven't accused you of anything specific. Yet you seem to know exactly when this happened. Dexter's smirk faltered. Jackson stepped forward. Everyone knows when it happened. The whole school's talking about it. The whole school is talking about something that was discovered less than 5 minutes ago? Willow pulled out her phone. That's remarkable communication speed. Almost like people knew about it in advance. You can't prove anything. Bryce muttered. Actually, Naomi Patel stepped out from the crowd. Voice shaking but determined. I was here early for Science Olympiad practice. I saw everything. Recorded everything. The hallway went silent. Dexter's face cycled through surprise, rage, and something that might have been fear. Whatever she thinks she saw, Morrison began, is backed up by security footage. Willow interrupted. Because while the hallway cameras don't work, the one I installed in my classroom does. Motion activated. Uploads directly to the cloud. I'm sure it captured whoever did this in perfect detail. It was a bluff. She'd only had the camera installed yesterday, but Dexter didn't know that. His face went pale. You can't put cameras in classrooms without permission. Morrison protested. Actually, I can. For personal safety after documented threats, it's in the teachers' union contract. Page 47. Section 3. I'm guessing you haven't read it recently. More students had gathered now. The crowd growing with each passing moment. Willow could feel the shift in energy. For years, these kids had watched the Caldwell crew operate with impunity. Now they were seeing something new. Someone who fought back with intelligence and preparation. This is ridiculous. Dexter spat. Some furniture got moved around. Big deal. If certain teachers can't handle a little hazing, maybe they're too fragile for the job. Hazing. Willow repeated. Interesting choice of words. Hazing that targets only female teachers. That escalates to threats of sexual assault against minor students. There's another word for that pattern of behavior. Yeah? What's that? Jackson sneered. Evidence. Willow said simply, of systematic gender-based discrimination and harassment, the kind that triggers federal investigations and personal liability for anyone who participated or enabled it. Morrison went white. Now wait a minute. I'm done waiting. Willow cut him off. For years, you've allowed these boys to terrorize female students and staff. It ends now. Or what? Dexter stepped closer, using his height advantage to loom over her. You'll use your little kung fu moves? Assault more students? Willow didn't step back. Didn't flinch. I don't need to touch you to destroy you. Dexter, you've already done that yourself. Every threat, every vandalized car, every teacher you've driven out, it's all documented. All traceable. All actionable. You're bluffing. Am I? She smiled. Cold and sharp. Your friend Bryce there has been very careless with his social media posts. Amazing what people admit to when they think they're untouchable. Like that detailed post about what you did to Miss Rodriguez's car. Or the group chat where you planned this morning's vandalism. Bryce fumbled for his phone. Thoughts of panicking. That's private. You can't. Screenshots are forever. Mr. Thornton, especially when sent to dozens of people who've been waiting years for justice. The crowd was growing restless. Students who'd been silent victims were whispering, sharing their own stories. The wall of fear that had protected the Caldwell crew was cracking. Everyone back to class, Morrison shouted. But his authority had evaporated. Nobody moved. You know what? Dexter's voice dropped low and dangerous. You want to play hardball? Fine. But remember, we know where you live, what you drive, your daily routine. Accidents happen all the time. The naked threat hung in the air. Several students gasped. Morrison opened his mouth, perhaps to finally intervene, when Willow laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a bitter one. It was genuine amusement, and it clearly unsettled Dexter more than any anger would have. Oh, Dexter, she said, shaking her head. You still don't get it. You think this is about me? Look around you. She gestured to the crowded hallway, the dozens of phones recording, the faces of students who'd found their courage. This isn't my fight anymore. It's theirs. Every girl you've cornered, every student you've bullied, every person you've stepped on because Daddy's badge made you untouchable. They're all here, and they're all recording. So what? We'll take their phones? And the live streams? Kendra called out. The ones going out to thousands of people right now? The ones showing you threatening a teacher in front of 100 witnesses? Dexter spun around, seeing phones everywhere, all pointed at him. His carefully constructed image of power was crumbling in real time. You set me up, he snarled at Willow. No, she replied calmly. You set yourself up. I just refuse to be another victim. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Because your whole system depends on people being too scared to fight back. Mr. Caldwell. Mr. Pierce. Mr. Thornton. A new voice commanded attention. Step away from Miss Bennett immediately. Everyone turned to see State Trooper Helena Martinez standing at the end of the hallway, hand resting on her service weapon. Behind her, 2 more state troopers and several people in suits. What are you doing here? Morrison demanded. This is a local matter. Not anymore. One of the suited women stepped forward, showing her badge. Special Agent Sarah Chen. FBI. We're here investigating allegations of civil rights violations and corruption. We'll need to speak with Miss Bennett and several students. FBI? Dexter's voice cracked. For a school prank? For a pattern of criminal behavior? Agent Chen corrected, including cyber harassment, assault, and conspiracy to violate civil rights. Your father's been arrested. By the way, turns out using police resources to intimidate teachers is frowned upon. The hallway erupted. Students cheered. Morrison looked like he might faint. And Dexter, for the first time in his privileged life, looked genuinely afraid. You can't do this, he whispered. Do you know who I am? Yes, Willow said quietly. You're the boy who thought he could threaten a 15-year-old girl to get to me. You're the boy who confused fear with respect, privilege with power. And now, you're the boy who's going to learn about consequences. State Trooper Martinez stepped forward. Dexter Caldwell, you're under arrest for making terroristic threats. You have the right to remain silent. As they led him away, Jackson and Bryce tried to blend into the crowd. But Agent Chen pointed them out, those 2 as well. We have questions about their social media posts. The hallway was chaos, but Willow stood in its center like the eye of a storm. Students approached her, some crying, some laughing, all looking at her with something she'd never expected to inspire. Hope. Miss Bennett. Emma Rodriguez pushed through the crowd, tears streaming down her face. Is it really over? Are they really gone? Willow put a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. It's not over. There's still a lot of work to do. But yes, they're gone. And they won't hurt you or anyone else again. How? Kendra asked. How did you know the FBI would come? Willow smiled. Remember when I asked you to send me all those files? I didn't just keep them. I sent them to people who could actually do something. Sometimes the system is broken locally, but there are always bigger systems that can intervene. But weren't you scared? Elijah asked. When they threatened you? Terrified. Willow admitted. But my Sifu taught me something important. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in spite of fear. And sometimes, the scariest thing you can do is simply refuse to back down. Principal Morrison tried to slink away, but Agent Chen called out, Principal Morrison? We'll need to speak with you as well. About your failure to report multiple incidents of harassment and assault. As the federal agents led him away, Willow turned to her students. I believe we have a physics class to attend, though we might need a new classroom for today. Usamina. Mrs. Holloway appeared. The veteran teacher who'd warned Willow just days ago. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. 20 years I've waited to see someone stand up to them. 20 years of watching good teachers driven away. Thank you. As they walked toward the temporary classroom, Naomi fell into step beside Willow. Miss Bennett? What you said about Wing Chun and using their force against them, that wasn't just about fighting, was it? Willow smiled. No, it wasn't. The Caldwells came at me with brute force threats, vandalism, intimidation. Instead of meeting that force directly, I redirected it. Let them create evidence against themselves. Let their own arrogance be their downfall. Like Newton's third law, Gandra added, they pushed, and the universe pushed back. Exactly, though I prefer the Wing Chun principle, the way of the intercepting fist. You don't wait for the attack to land. You intercept it, redirect it, and use it against them. As they entered Mrs. Holloway's classroom, Willow noticed something different about her students. They sat straighter, engaged more readily, asked questions without fear. The oppressive atmosphere that had haunted Ridgemont High was lifting. Her phone buzzed. A message from Sifu Lu. Heard you had an interesting morning. Well done. Little warrior. She was typing a response when Agent Chen appeared in the doorway. "Miss Bennett, we found something in Dexter Caldwell's car. Plans for something bigger. We're going to need your help." Willow looked at her students. Then back at the agent. "Can it wait until after class? We're discussing momentum and conservation of energy. Seems particularly relevant today." Agent Chen smiled. "Of course, but Miss Bennett, what you've started here, it's bigger than just Ridgemont High. The Caldwell network extends across the state. We're going to need someone who understands their tactics." As the agent left, Willow turned back to her students. Whatever came next, she'd face it the same way she'd faced everything else with preparation. Intelligence. And the willingness to stand when others knelt. "Now," she said, picking up a marker, "who can tell me what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object?" Emma Rodriguez raised her hand, a smile breaking across her tear-stained face. "The force finds out it wasn't as unstoppable as it thought?" "Precisely," Willow said. "Absolutely precisely." Outside, sirens wailed as more arrests were made. The Caldwell Empire was crumbling, brought down not by violence or political maneuvering, but by a 25-year-old physics teacher who simply refused to be another victim. But as Willow would soon learn, cornered predators are when they're most dangerous. And the Caldwell family had resources and rage in equal measure. The real fight was just beginning. The weekend following the arrests should have been peaceful. Instead, Willow Bennett woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of shattering glass. She rolled out of bed instantly. Muscle memory from years of training taking over. Through her bedroom doorway, she could see flames dancing across her living room curtains. Molotov cocktail. They'd escalated to attempted murder. Willow grabbed her phone and emergency bag, crawling beneath the smoke already filling her apartment. The fire spread fast, too fast. To be just one bottle, they'd planned this carefully. She made it to her door, but the handle was scorching hot. Trapped. The windows were her only option. Second floor. Concrete parking lot below. She'd practiced falls from higher, but never through smoke and flame. 911. What's your emergency? 427 Maple Street. Apartment 12. Multiple incendiary devices. Structure fully involved. She kept her voice clinical, despite her racing heart. Second floor resident trapped. "Ma'am, get to a window," and the line went dead. Her phone screen showed no signal. They'd jammed cell towers. This wasn't random retaliation. It was a coordinated attack. Willow wrapped a wet towel around her face and approached her bedroom window. Below, she caught movement. 3 figures in dark clothing, waiting. They expected her to jump right into their hands, but Wing Chun had taught her to see options where others saw only obstacles. Instead of the window, she kicked through the connecting wall to her neighbor's apartment. Cheap construction had some advantages. Mrs. Chen was thankfully visiting family. Her apartment empty. Willow moved through the darkness. The smoke less dense here. She reached Mrs. Chen's balcony, climbed over to the next unit, then the next. By the time her attackers realized she wasn't coming out her window, she'd already dropped from the building's far side and disappeared into the tree line. Behind her, sirens wailed, real firefighters, not Chief Caldwell's corrupted force. Her apartment was gone, but she was alive. Round 1 to her. Her phone buzzed as she reached safer distance. Agent Chen saw the fire response. "Are you safe?" Before she could reply, headlights swept across her. A black SUV accelerated straight at her. Willow dove sideways, rolling as the vehicle missed her by inches. It spun around for another pass. She ran, not randomly, but with purpose, leading them toward the construction site she'd noticed during her morning jogs. Partially built structures, equipment, obstacles terrain that favored agility over brute force. The SUV roared after her, but she was already climbing scaffolding. They'd have to follow on foot. Car doors slammed. 3 men emerged, all wearing ski masks, just like old times. "Who? Teach?" One voice was familiar. Bryce Thornton. "Out on bail already. Except no cameras here, no witnesses, just you and us." Willow centered herself atop the scaffolding. 3 opponents in unfamiliar terrain. Darkness, her ally. She'd faced worse in tournament sparring. They climbed clumsily, assuming she was trapped. The first man reached her level, lunging forward. Willow used a pak sao to deflect his grab, following with a palm strike that sent him tumbling back into his companions. All three went down like dominoes. But more vehicles were arriving. The Caldwell network ran deep, and they'd activated everyone. Soon she'd be overwhelmed by numbers. That's when she heard motorcycle engines. 6 bikes roared into the construction site. Headlights blazing. Her attackers froze, caught in the beams. Sifu sends his regards. The lead rider called out, removing her helmet to reveal Master Lu's senior student. Jessica Yang. Thought you might need backup. The ski mask men found themselves surrounded by trained fighters. Unlike Willow's defensive style, her Wing Chun brothers and sisters took offensive stances. 6 against 3. Jessica noted. Hardly seems fair. Want us to tie one hand behind our backs? The attackers fled to their SUV, but found their tires slashed. As sirens approached state police this time, they had nowhere to run. How did you know? Willow asked. Climbing down. Jessica smiled. Sifu's been monitoring things since your call. When the FBI mentioned the Caldwell network might retaliate, he activated the school. Nobody threatens one of us alone. As state troopers arrested the arsonists, Willow felt something she'd missed since leaving her training family. The strength of community. The Caldwells had their network, but so did she. Monday morning, Willow entered Ridgemont High, flanked by state trooper protection. The weekend's events had made national news. Teacher targeted in assassination attempt after exposing corruption. The attention was uncomfortable but necessary. Principal Morrison's office was empty, his nameplate already removed. In his place sat Dr. Patricia Reeves, an interim principal with a reputation for cleaning up broken schools. Miss Bennett. She greeted warmly. I've reviewed your files and the FBI reports. What you've uncovered here is systemic abuse going back decades. I need your help fixing it. I just want to teach physics. Willow replied honestly, and you will. But you're also the only staff member these students trust. They need to see you're still here. Still fighting for them. Willow's first class was packed beyond capacity. Students from other periods had skipped to attend, cramming into every available space. As she entered, they erupted in applause. Okay, she said, fighting back emotion. I appreciate the support, but we have equations to solve. Miss B. Kendra called out, is it true they tried to kill you? Willow considered lying, softening the truth. But these kids had been lied to enough. Yes, they tried, they failed, and now they're in federal custody. But there are more of them, right? Elijah asked. The Caldwell network. They won't just give up. No, they won't, but neither will we. And we have something they don't. Kung Fu skills, someone called out. Earning laughs. Wing Chun. Willow corrected with a smile. But no, we have truth, evidence, and federal oversight. They operated in shadows. We're dragging them into the light. The day progressed with surreal normalcy. Between teaching, physics, concepts, Willow fielded calls from reporters, met with FBI agents, and helped identify corrupted staff members from student testimonies. During lunch, Naomi Patel approached with several other girls. Miss Bennett, we were wondering, could you teach us self-defense? I mean, after everything that's happened, Willow studied the group victims of the Caldwell crew's harassment, now seeking empowerment. The school has strict policies about martial arts instruction. Actually, Dr. Reeves appeared behind them. I think it's an excellent idea. We're implementing new programs focused on student empowerment. A self-defense class would fit perfectly. That afternoon, Willow found herself in the gymnasium with 40 students, not just girls, but boys who'd also suffered under the toxic culture. She started with basics, stance, breathing, awareness. Wing Chun isn't about fighting, she explained. Demonstrating the opening form, it's about efficiency, using minimal force for maximum effect. Perfect for smaller defenders against larger attackers. Like you against those 3 guys? Emma Rodriguez asked eagerly. Exactly. They relied on size and intimidation. I relied on technique and timing. Now, everyone find a partner. We'll start with basic deflection. As students paired up, Willow noticed movement outside the gym windows. A line of expensive cars had gathered in the parking lot. The Caldwell legal team had arrived. Keep practicing, she told her students. Stepping outside, Harrison Caldwell stood at the center of a phalanx of lawyers. His police uniform replaced by an expensive suit bail had found him too. His wife, Margaret Caldwell, looked like a corporate shark in human form. Miss Bennett, Margaret's voice could have frozen hellfire. We're filing charges against you for assault, defamation, and conspiracy to deprive our family of civil rights. Willow almost laughed at the irony. Good luck with that. This is no joke. One lawyer stepped forward. We have witness statements that you physically attacked students, planted evidence, and orchestrated a conspiracy to frame the Caldwell family. Witness statements from whom? The 3 men who tried to burn me alive? They seem to have credibility issues. Harrison's face purpled. You destroyed my son's future. He's been expelled, facing federal charges. Because he threatened to assault a minor. Willow interrupted. Because he vandalized school property. Because he led a harassment campaign that drove teachers to mental breakdowns. I didn't destroy his future. I just stopped letting him destroy others. You think you've won? Margaret stepped closer, her perfume nauseating. We own judges, politicians, media outlets. We'll bury you in legal fees, destroy your reputation. Make sure you never teach again. Mrs. Caldwell. Agent Chen materialized beside Willow. Having approached silently, are you threatening a federal witness? Because that would add to your family's already impressive criminal charges? The lawyers immediately pulled Margaret back, whispering urgently, but Harrison wasn't done. This isn't over, he snarled. You cost me my badge, my reputation. No, Willow said firmly. You cost yourself those things when you chose corruption over justice. When you used your position to enable your son's crimes. I just held up a mirror. Through the gym windows, students watched the confrontation. Some filmed, others simply stood witness to something they'd never seen: adults being held accountable. We're done here, the lead lawyer announced, herding his clients away. We'll see you in court. As they left, Agent Chen turned to Willow. They're getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes, but they also make dangerous moves. Are you sure you want to stay here? Willow looked back at her students, their faces pressed against windows, hope and fear warring in their expressions. They need to see this through. So do I. That evening, Willow sat in her temporary apartment FBI safe house, really reviewing legal documents. The Caldwells had filed 17 different lawsuits, clearly hoping to overwhelm her. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but she recognized the voice immediately. Hello, Dexter, you ruined everything. His voice was differential, unhinged. My scholarship, my future, my family. Where are you calling from? Jail calls are recorded. I'm not in jail. The words chilled her. Dad's lawyers got me house arrest. Oncle monitor. But there are ways around everything, aren't there? You taught me that. Willow was already texting Agent Chen while keeping Dexter talking. What do you want? I want my life back. But since I can't have that, I'll settle for taking yours. Dexter, think about what you're saying. You're on a recorded line, making threats. I don't care anymore. His voice cracked. You took everything. Well, guess what? That ankle monitor? It's still at my house. But I'm not. The line went dead. Willow immediately called Agent Chen. Dexter's violated house arrest. He's mobile and making threats. We're tracking him now. Get somewhere safe. The lights went out. Not just her apartment, the entire block. Willow moved to the window. Seeing a figure crossing the parking lot, Dexter, carrying what looked like a crowbar, she could run, wait for backup. But something in his posture, the desperate determination, told her he wouldn't stop. Not tonight. Not ever. Until one of them ended this. Willow made a choice that went against all protocol. She walked out to meet him. Hello. Dexter. Spun around. Crowbar raised. Up close. She could see he'd lost weight. His former athletic build now gaunt. Rage had eaten him from inside. You came out, he said. Surprised. Thought I'd have to drag you. No dragging necessary. But think about this. You attack me. You spend decades in prison. Is that really what you want? What I want? He laughed bitterly. I wanted to coast through school on my name. Graduate. Take over Dad's position. Run this town like my family always has. Simple dreams. But you had to be a hero. I just did my job. Your job was to shut up and take it. He swung the crowbar wildly. Willow flowed aside, the weapon whistling past her ear. Everyone else did. Why couldn't you? He swung again, more controlled this time. Willow deflected with a bong sow, redirecting the weapon's path while stepping inside his range. Her palm strike caught his solar plexus, dropping him to his knees. The crowbar clattered away. Dexter gasped, trying to breathe, but instead of attacking, he started crying huge. Broken zops. I don't know how to be anything else. He choked out. My whole life, Dad said we were special, better. That rules didn't apply to us. And everyone acted like it was true. Willow kept her distance but didn't flee. And when someone finally said no, my whole world fell apart. He looked up at her, and for the first time, she saw not a predator, but a broken boy. I'm 18 years old, and my life is over. No, Willow said firmly. Your old life is over. The life built on hurting others, on unearned privilege. But you're 18. You can build something better. How? The word was desperate. Everyone hates me. My friends are in jail. My parents are going to prison. I've got nothing. You have choices. You can keep blaming me. Keep fighting a war you've already lost. Or you can take responsibility and start rebuilding. Sirens approached. Agent Chen's team would arrive soon. Dexter seemed to deflate completely. Will you testify against me? He asked quietly. Yes, but I'll also testify that tonight, when you could have escalated, you chose to stop. That matters. As federal agents took Dexter into custody gently this time, recognizing his broken state agent Chen approached Willow, that was incredibly dangerous. And probably the bravest thing I've seen. You gave him something his family never did. What's that? A chance to choose differently. The rest of the week passed in a blur of legal proceedings. The Caldwell network collapsed like dominoes. Corrupt officials arrested, complicit teachers fired. Decades of abuse finally addressed. Willow testified in multiple hearings, her calm precision devastating to the defense, but it was the students who truly shone. One by one, they came forward with stories, evidence, courage that had been suppressed for years. The culture of fear was dying, replaced by something beautiful: hope. Friday afternoon, Willow stood before her physics class for what felt like the first normal lesson in weeks. No threats. No interruptions. Just teaching. So, she said, writing on the board, who can explain the conservation of momentum? Emma Rodriguez raised her hand. When objects collide, the total momentum before and after remains the same? Excellent. And how does this apply to our recent experiences? The class exchanged glances. Sensing a larger lesson, Kendra ventured. The Caldwells had all this momentum power, influence, fear. When they collided with someone who wouldn't move, their momentum had to go somewhere. Elijah continued. Back at them, they destroyed themselves with their own force. Willow smiled. Perfect analysis. In Wing Chun, we call this using an opponent's energy against them. In physics, we call it conservation laws. In life, we call it justice. Naomi finished softly. The bell rang, but nobody moved immediately. There was something sacred in this momenta class that had witnessed transformation, that had learned lessons far beyond physics. Miss Bennett? Emma Rodriguez lingered after others left. I'm writing an essay for my college applications about finding courage when systems fail. Could I interview you? I think you should interview yourself. Willow replied. You and your classmates are the real heroes here. I just refuse to be a victim. You all chose to stand up. That evening, Ridgemont High held its first community healing circle. Parents, students, teachers, and community members gathered to address the trauma and plan for the future. Willow sat in the circle, listening as people shared their stories. Mrs. Rodriguez had returned, teaching English again with renewed passion. Other teachers who'd been driven away were coming back. The school was healing. Miss Bennett, Dr. Reeves asked, would you like to share? Willow stood, looking around the circle. 10 years ago, I started learning Wing Chun because I was tired of feeling powerless. My Sifu taught me that true strength isn't about fighting, it's about standing firm when everything pushes you to fall. What happened here wasn't about martial arts or clever tactics. It was about a community deciding that enough was enough. Every student who recorded evidence, every person who testified, every parent who demanded change, you're all warriors. The Caldwells thought they were strong because they could hurt people without consequences. But real strength is protecting others, building instead of destroying, choosing justice even when it's dangerous. She paused, seeing tears on many faces, determination on others. They asked me once if I knew who I was dealing with. I did. I was dealing with bullies who'd never faced consequences. But more importantly, I was dealing with a community ready to reclaim its power, and together, we won. The applause was thunderous. But Willow barely heard it. She was thinking about Monday's lesson plan, about the students who'd fill her classroom, about the future they were building together. Later, as she packed up her temporary classroom, her permanent one was being renovated, her phone buzzed. A message from the district superintendent. Would you consider leading a statewide initiative on school safety and empowerment? Willow smiled, typing back. Can I still teach physics? Of course. We need teachers like you in classrooms. Then yes. As she left Ridgemont High that evening, Willow passed the memorial plaque students had installed not for her, but for all the teachers and students who'd suffered in silence. Never again, it read simply. In the parking lot, her new car waited. The community had crowdfunded a replacement after the fire. On the windshield, a note. Thank you for showing us that we're stronger than our fears. Your students? Willow drove home through streets that felt different now. Safer, more hopeful. The Caldwell Empire had fallen, but something better was rising from its Ashesa community that protected its vulnerable, that demanded justice, that refused to let fear win. Her phone rang. Sifu Lu checking in as he did every evening now. How are my favorite physics students? He asked warmly. Learning that force equals mass times acceleration, Willow replied, and that when properly applied, even small forces can move mountains. Ah, he chuckled, teaching them physics and philosophy. I trained you well. You trained me to fight. Willow corrected. They taught me what was worth fighting for. As she pulled into her new apartment complex, Willow saw several students from her self-defense class practicing forms in the courtyard. They waved enthusiastically, demonstrating their improving technique. Change was slow, sometimes painful, always challenging. But it was happening, one student, one lesson, one stand at a time. Monday would bring new challenges. The Caldwell trials were starting. There would be more threats, more resistance from those who benefited from the old system, but Willow wasn't facing them alone anymore. She had a community. She had truth. And she had the unshakable knowledge that when someone says you can't fight City Hall, sometimes the answer is simply, watch me. In her apartment, Willow set down her bags and smiled at the gift her students had given her, a framed photo from her first self-defense class. 40 faces beaming with newfound confidence. The inscription read, To Miss Bennett, who taught us that real strength isn't about knowing how to fight, it's about knowing when to stand. She hung it on her wall, right next to her Wing Chun instructor certificate. Tomorrow would bring new physics lessons, new challenges, new opportunities to shape young minds. But tonight, Willow Bennett, teacher, warrior, catalyst for changes imply, smiled, and began preparing Monday's lesson plan. After all, conservation of energy was a complex topic, and her students deserved her very best. The Caldwell dynasty was history. The future belonged to those brave enough to build something better, and in room 217 of Ridgemont High, that future was being written one equation at a time.